Hey tubers, welcome back for another adventure. So today we are working on a 1984 Honda ATC200ES Big Red. This thing here has some electrical problems, and it has, let's go with three different kinds. First of all, this goes to the key switch here. It has no DC power, right? The key switch isn't hooked up, battery does nothing. So that's one thing. The spark system, the CDI, the onboard ignition system, even should you wire it up, doesn't seem to be functioning. And lastly, the solenoid starter, neutral switch circuit. So this thing has all three problems, and we're going to go through them a little bit at a time. I want to keep this thing as OEM as possible, but I'd also like to update the ignition system to a 12 volt DC and so forth, so that gets a little better spark, a little stronger spark. This thing is going to live in a cold environment, though generally speaking Hondas start anywhere. So we want to do a little upgrading. Anyway, let's roll this through the snow to the upper shop and get started. Boy, that is one good looking machine. You gotta love it. Anyway, this belongs to a buddy of mine. His name is Steve. And I went up to his place and we worked out a trade deal, and I got this thing fired up. It would start on the rope start. It ran, but the electric starter wasn't working, the lights weren't working, and then it went from that to the it lost spark. I did get it up here using the portable CDI box. And I'm just kind of going through a little bit of this discussion, because this discussion helps the troubleshooting, right? Anyway, to get started on this, you want to pop the seat first. We're going to check the battery out, see if it's still alive, pop the gas tank off, and then you could actually see what you're doing and start spinning wires. This thing came with a Deca battery. This battery is pushing 2 years old, and I gotta tell you, it didn't even need a charge. It was really peaked up pretty good. So when you're buying batteries, Deca goes toward the top of the list. Consider them. Now, where are we? When I hook up the ground wire to the battery, right? That makes complete sense for anybody who doesn't like electronics, right? This is the body, the black wire that goes on the battery, the negative terminal, right? Nothing confusing there. That's the battery. Still nothing at all confusing. Where things get interesting is after the battery. A lot of times there's a wire that kind of goes to the starting solenoid, and there's a little bridge off the starting solenoid that has a fuse hanging off of it, and that's got to go to the key switch. Now, the first thing the key switch does, well, the key switch is basically how you turn on the all-terrain vehicle. Before you turn on the key switch, you really got a whole lot of nothing going on here, right? Because though you have one side of the starting solenoid energized, you can't turn the switch on until you turn on the key switch. By the way, this switch is the push button on the handlebars. Basically, what the key switch does, or excuse me, this is the contact inside the starting solenoid. That's the starter button, the handlebars. The key switch turns on the left-hand switch. The key switch, the left-hand handlebar switches. You turn on the key switch, power goes right through that fuse, supposedly to here. You turn this on, then the power comes over to here. Now I'm going to be doing some troubleshooting, and let me show you how I'm going to wire up the battery. So we hooked up the battery, let's call it normally from a negative terminal point of view, right? That's the ground wire hooked right to the negative. We're all happy. From a positive point of view, I'm running a headlight in series with it, so that if somehow you have a dead short in here anywhere, rather than watching wires smoke and burn, what happens is you see the headlight come on. So that part, easy, right? And it makes sense, and it's a good troubleshooting tool having the headlight. That way, like when you turn the key on, right, if the headlight goes on bright, you say to yourself, what kind of trouble do I have cooking here? So, though it has a Honda key, and it feels like a pretty good switch, and it fits in the holder and so forth, the wires don't always match up. Just want to back this down a little bit. So once I installed the battery and headlight in, I started checking around, and sure enough, 12 volt comes up here, right? 12 volts from the battery. You need it to come up here. So this is the key switch harness, and it's got a nice little plug, red to red, right? Red, red, all good. So power goes in here. Power comes out on the pure black wire, right? No stripe, just pure black, right? And it took me a few minutes to kind of fumble about and figure out, for some reason, I don't know if this wire faded on the harness or what it is, but this black wire plugged into red here. So I don't know if we have a color code on the key switch issue or faded wire. I mean, this might have some black stripes on it. I don't know. But by fumbling around, more or less by method of elimination, I figured out that it was this wire. This wire here is the off button for the CDI, and I figured that out by running an ohm meter between the two of them. I found continuity, so that told me what that wire was. And ground, green, right? So that was easy to figure out. Additional wires, I don't know if you remember, the white and blue, it was a matter of matching those up to the headlight. I discovered that the headlight appears to be missing its ground, so I gotta run a green wire from this plug up to there, and I've kind of jumped it, and I've discovered the headlight does in fact come on. So at this point, right, power to the key switch to the handlebar switch, headlight works. So we're making good progress. Starter button, still a whole lot of nutting, and if you do turn it on, I think I still have everything hooked up. I can't seem to get a neutral light. I could get reverse, right? See, it's on and off and on and off. So I got reverse, but I got no neutral light. I did some more troubleshooting, and you basically have two wires come off the motor. This one and another one right behind it. There it is. And it turns out, sure enough, when you put it in reverse, this grounds, which will light the light, but the other one does not go to ground. So there might be something wrong with the internal switch. We might just have it so that when you turn this puppy on, the neutral light is always on. I have more troubleshooting to do, because maybe I just have a burned out light bulb here, right? But I didn't get ground on this side, so there could be more than one thing acting up. The other thing I did was I forced the wire harness to ground, and I still didn't get a neutral light, which makes me wonder, this thing has a strange relay interlock thing, such that if it's in gear, you can't start it. You could pull on the string, it'll pop once or twice, and then it'll shut itself down. And on the electric starter, you can't engage the electric starter. And should you bypass and engage it, once again, if it's in gear, a lot of times it'll inhibit the spark. So that's very handy when an all-terrain vehicle is new. Kind of a problem when they get to be 40 years old, because little things like the neutral switches and the motors don't work anymore. So I loosened up the dashboard and pulled the light bulb for neutral. Let me show you. I think I'm showing you that. The filament's opened. Well, that might be the problem. So I went sniffing around the hoard, found a couple of dashboards. This is from that TRX250 motor I bought. This looks like it's from a TRX200SX. What I'm going to do is I'm going to steal the reverse light bulb, probably from this harness. I might use this one. So I'm going to steal it from here. Why am I taking reverse? Unless wrong way Louis owned the machine, you probably spent more time in neutral than you did backing up. So check it out. We have neutral light. And I pop it into gear, goes out, comes back. So that's cool. It must be just a bad relay keeping my starting solenoid from coming back to life. Hey guys, check this out. So you turn it on, got a neutral light. Very good thing. Headlight, high and low beam, also good things. Lastly, check it out, we even have a starter now. And if I pop it into reverse, we have a reverse light as well as a neutral light. So it appears as if we got everything working. I'm going to hook up the pulse generator, see if the spark comes back, and it might start right up. Now, how do you get to this point? Because this is supposed to be a troubleshooting video. I went through the diagrams of what you need. Obviously, back to it, you got your battery, positive, right? First thing I did is I hooked up the key switch and I made sure I had power here, right? You put the meter from there to there and you see 12 volts. Oh look, I got power. Then I went through and I went through these switches here. Particularly, a bunch of these connections were missing. So I figured out what this was, that was, and all the others. And by the way, they are yellow wires with red stripes on them. Kind of makes sense. So as I went through this rat's nest, right, these wires here are the wires powered up by the key switch. And what you have is a neutral light, a reverse light, power coming up here for the starter button, and the power that goes up there for the starter button also powers up the headlights, right? Basically, you're powering up this switch. So once you got all that distribution, then you start looking around. I had a burned out light bulb. My neutral light was burned out, right? So I changed the light bulb. Then I went through the wires here and figured out that they should be working, and by moving them around and all, I've probably developed a few connections by hitting it with a strong battery and all. I think that relay freed up. This thing is looking better and better. It looks like I might be able to bring it back to life on the OEM ignition system. Normally there's some kind of box or something that kind of retains these under here. I'm not quite sure what to do about that. These are 45-year-old wires. You don't want to mess them around too much. You don't want to put them in a bag and then have the bag get condensation. So I'm not quite sure how to fix this mess. Yeah, I think I'm just gonna plug in the CDI unit and plug the pulse generator and see if this thing will start and run on its own OEM ignition system. If you can bring one back on the OEM ignition system and it runs good, I'm nervous about hacking it. Why do you want to hack it up, right? You try to keep it original. I mean, I was missing the ground on the headlight, right? Seems stupid, but no ground on the headlight, no run. So you start off easy. Battery, key switch, make sure everything I circled needed some love, right? The neutral light was burned out. These connections weren't there. The key switch wasn't happy and sitting in the right position right there, right? The ground for the headlights and the tail light. Is there a tail light on here? Yeah, look at that. I wonder if it works. Yep, even works. So, it's almost riding time. So, I don't think this all-terrain vehicle likes me. It won't run, even though it's got a spark. It will not run on its OEM ignition system. So I hacked an ignition system on it, and it won't run. But it will run on the portable CDI. Kind of strange. Anyway, what I want to do is kind of get a ride out of it to see if there's anything odd going on. So let's let it warm up for a moment, and I'm going to strap on the GoPro and we'll get it out for a ride. Well, I don't know how long this ride's going to be. It appears as if the carburetor likes to flood and run out. So anyway, you turn it on, and you hit the going to put it into high range. Here we are. Downshift a couple of gears. Finally, we're running. Not bad. I love it when the machine comes back to life. I normally romp in the front. The back here is a little more dangerous in the spring. I'm not So I checked the oil a couple of times, it's good. I gotta pop that carburetor, find out why the float is sticking. That's why it's surging. We almost made it back. When I first worked at this, at Steve's place, I kind of knew it was going to be a little bit of a troublemaker. And now that I'm working on it again, I see that it's not going to disappoint. It's going to be a lot more of a troublemaker. Obviously the engine starts, it runs, the tranny's good, it moves, it does all the things it's supposed to do. But for some reason, it's being really cranky about the ignition system. I'm not sure why. It'll run on the portable CDI, but it won't run on the OEM ignition system, and it won't run on the I hacked an ignition system on it, right? You see all these wires hanging off of it, and it won't run on that. And I changed the CDI on that also, and I didn't change the coil. Maybe it's the coil. You know, sometimes stuff from China doesn't work. Sometimes things just don't work, so maybe I got a bad one, eh? So, in the meantime, I want to thank you guys for dropping by to watch and comment and subscribe. Sorry that we got to kind of do this as a part 2, but it didn't fix on part 1. I'll show you some of the other stuff I've done to contain the wiring and so forth. I mean, this thing will be cool when I'm done with it. I just don't understand why the ignition is being such a pecker. Sometimes birds don't fly, they walk, I guess. Anyway, thanks for watching and commenting and subscribing. Please remember, feet down, heads up, and I'm sure it's something stupid, and then it'll be fixed. Take care now.